Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for my continued followers, I want to thank you. I got a very good one that we need to get started on today. That is multi-layered, multi-dimensional, and will bring an emotional temperament to you when you hear this case. And it's been ongoing since 2018. And it's about Kenosha, Wisconsin resident Chrystul Kizer, who met a guy named Randy Volmar. She was 17 at the time. He was a 34-year-old white man. She's an African-American young lady. They met on Backpages when she was 16 years old. She posted on to the site after a referral from a girl she knew and stated that she needed money for food and school notebooks. So this young lady was 16 at the time, back in 2018. He was the first person, Randy Volmar was the first person to contact her when she joined the site. She lived with him and alleged that he sexually abused her regularly and sometimes filmed the abuse for over a year. Chrystul Kizer alleged that Randy Volmar began trafficking her using Backpages and took the money she was paid. Prosecutors told the court there was no doubt that Randy Volmar, sexually assaulted Chrystul Kizer. There was no doubt that Randy Volmar did sexually assault Chrystul Kizer and other girls based on videos seized by the police. Randy Volmar was previously arrested in 2017 after a 15-year-old girl reported him to police for giving her drugs and threatening to kill her. He was charged with child enticement, using a computer to facilitate a child sex crime, and second-degree sexual assault of a child. Randy Volmar was released the same day and had to pay no bail and was told he would receive a court summons. So he had already got in trouble in 2017 with a 15-year-old girl, and the courts let him out. Didn't have to do jail time or become a registered sex offender. The Washington Post reported that the court records demonstrated that police had evidence that Randy Volmar was abusing multiple underage African-American girls. And there was video evidence of the abuse. So this white guy at the time, 34, back in 2017-18, was into young African-American girls. Records also showed that the prosecutor's office received the evidence 12 days before Randy Volmar was killed by Chrystul Kizer and 3 months after his arrest. Prosecutors alleged that Chrystul Kizer killed Volmar on June 5th, 2018 by shooting him in the head. Charging documents say Chrystul Kizer admitted to taking an Uber from Milwaukee to Volmar's residence, shooting him because she had gotten upset and she was tired of him touching her. And then she started a fire at the residence before departing in Volmar's BMW. A neighbor called 911 to report the fire at Randy Volmar's house. Police found and identified his burned body, and a later autopsy showed he had been shot in the head. Randy Volmar's car was found abandoned in Milwaukee. Police used a receipt found in the car, surveillance video, and Facebook to track the stolen car to Chrystul Kizer by matching an arrest photo to her selfies and live videos on Facebook. This social media thing gets you in trouble all the time. You young people have to be very careful. The police, the feds are always looking, especially if you're participating in criminal activity. So this case has multiple layers to it, so please listen to it very carefully. Prosecutors allege that Chrystul also stole a laptop and cash from Mr. Volar. Chrystul Kizer was incarcerated at the Kenosha County Detention Center, and bail was set for $1 million. So she got arrested at 17 for murder, start talking to the police without an attorney present, and explained the entire story. As you all know, very few people go to jail for being silent. Many people and most people go to jail for talking too much. Lawyers always tell you, keep your mouth closed until you retain and see your attorney. She is charged with first-degree intentional homicide, which carries a mandatory life sentence. Prosecutors agree that Mr. Volar, prosecutors agree that he was an abuser, but further stated that Chrystul planned to steal Volar's car as indicated by being armed with a gun, and that she downloaded a police scanner app the day of the shooting. Her lawyers, after she got arrested, planned to argue an affirmative defense. This is a Wisconsin state law that allows one to be acquitted of all charges if a crime was committed as a direct result of being trafficked. And in many of my other videos, I talk to you all the time about, don't worry so much about who's in office in Washington, D.C. Make sure you know what your state, your city councilman, your mayor, your aldermen, you know who they are, how they're legislating laws that affect your life each and every day. Also know who your congressperson is, your senator, your state senator, your state Supreme Court, because all of this has judicial issues that will affect your freedom. And this is what's taking place in this case. So they have this law called an affirmative defense. In December 2019, Kenosha County Circuit Court Judge David Wilk ruled that Chrystul did not have access to the affirmative defense law for trafficking victims. However, in February 2020, Judge Wilk lowered the bond to $400,000. So the judge rescinded that her lawyers could use the affirmative defense law. He rejected that, but he did lower her bond to $400,000 from $1 million. So Chrystul was released on June 22nd, 2020, after she posted bond raised by the Chicago Community Bond Fund and the Milwaukee Freedom Fund. On June 2nd, 2021, the Wisconsin Court of Appeals released a published decision finding that the trial court had erred in denying her the ability to raise as an affirmative defense related to victims of human trafficking and child sex trafficking. The prosecution appealed, and the decision was upheld by the Wisconsin State Supreme Court July of 2022. Now, of course, this case started back in 2018 when the murder took place, but I'm bringing this story up because she's on her way to court. Her case is getting ready to be tried, and her defense lawyers are trying to get the entire case thrown out. Now, there are so many layers to this. You got white, black, older man, younger woman. She was a teen. He had been accused of other sex crimes and never did a minute of jail time or had to go on the registry. They have documented videotapes of him abusing teenage African-American girls. And then Chrystul comes about, has enough of it, and then she decides to end Mr. Volar's life. So when one thinks about how do you approach this entire scenario, well, evidently, Chrystul, we can have the presumption that she came from a very, very broken home. Her parents, her family let her down. For her to feel at 15 and 16 years old that she had to go out and take care of herself financially by any means necessary. So her family has failed her. Of course, Randy Volar failed her, being a gentleman that was twice her age, old enough to be her father, and then started to abuse her. And he had previous situations of that nature and was never made accountable for it. The police and the judicial system in the state of Wisconsin failed Chrystul Kizer and the other young ladies that were in the presence of Randy Volar while he was alive and committing these horrific and heinous crimes to young females. So there's multi-layers here where the system, the community, and her family have failed her, and the end result is that she ended up getting arrested and locked up for first-degree murder. And she has been dealing with this situation since 2018. It is now 2024, so that's 6 years. And her case is finally coming up for trial, and her defense lawyers are trying to get the case thrown out. I'm very curious on what my listeners will think about this. This is something that is not rare. Sex trafficking and child trafficking evidently is taking place all throughout the world and even in America. This particular situation happened in the heartbeat of Middle America in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Think about it. What in the world do you think is happening in fast-paced cities like Chicago, New York, LA, Atlanta, Houston, Philadelphia, just to name a few? So if this situation is happening in Kenosha, Wisconsin, it's got to be 100-fold in some of our bigger, larger, major urban cities that are fast-paced and moving at the speed of light. And if you're listening as an adult man or woman who has daughters, it should touch your heart. And one has to ponder, did Chrystul have a right to end this man's life due to the abuse that he was doing to her? Should the police have gotten him off the streets earlier when he had been accused of being with a 15-year-old girl, and they had videotaped evidence of the things that he had done? So there are several systems that dropped the ball in this particular dynamic. But definitely take a look at the Chrystul Kizer case, accused of suspected sex trafficker's death in Kenosha, Wisconsin. There have been famous actresses that have heard about this case and have jumped on it, and people are raising money and trying to help fund to get this young lady, get this case dismissed for Chrystul Kizer, and let her try to recover. Of course, she's suffering from PTSD and I'm sure mental and psychological issues that she's going to need long-term therapy to try to regain some kind of positive, constructive life. She's like 23 or 24 now, 23, and she has her entire life in front of her. If she does get sentenced in this case to first-degree murder, it's mandatory life in the state of Wisconsin. So her life would be over. If we believe in second chances, and if we look at the whole meat and potatoes of this circumstance, there's fault on all parties, but she was a kid, and I believe that she should be acquitted of these charges, and she should be given a second chance at life, and give the system a chance to make up for failing her through her younger years in life that led up to this terrible situation. So, thank you for listening to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth in a righteous, positive, and God-fearing way. There are many cases like this with Randy Volar and Miss Chrystul Kizer that are taking place throughout this country. We need to stop sex trafficking, child trafficking. We need to take a handle on the opioid crisis, homelessness, inept inner city public schools. Mental health is a real issue that needs to be tackled. And gun violence, shoplifting, and looting, the destruction of many of our cities due to lax liberal laws need to end, or we're going to see a panacea of scenarios and cases like this coming into our near future. So I wanted to do a video to raise our level of consciousness for those that follow me, and please share this commentary with people that you think will find it informative. Thank you for listening to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.